Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System. And we are in the midst of Black History Month. So I thought that we could use some of our African beads to make a really pretty bracelet. Just so you know, you do not have to use African beads, but I just wanted to focus on that for this particular tutorial. So what I'm going to be using are some really neat Krobo beads and some paper beads from Ghana. So I've got some really neat beads that I'm going to introduce. Hard to show them in this camera, but that we're going to use for this piece. And I'm doing a wrap that I've not really tried, that I kind of modified from something that I've seen and decided to make it my own. And now your own. So we're just going to need our normal pliers for this. I try to stick to the basics. I have people tell me things like, "Oh, if you hammered that piece, it would look really a lot better." But what I'm trying to do, everybody, is make sure that you don't feel like you need to go out and buy a lot of additional things. Yes, I know some people have the ball peen hammers and the platform that you can use. I mean, I've got one. I don't want you to feel like you have to go out and buy those things in order to make what I'm calling some very basic pieces with some with some very basic tools. I want to stick with that. So what you're going to need today is your round nose pliers. They're the little arms or legs, or what you want to call these things, are round, and they're tapered smaller as they get towards the tip and larger as they get towards the base of the pliers. You'll need some square pliers, which are rounded on the outside. Every once in a while, I'll tell people in my class, pick up your round nose pliers, and they pick these up because they're slightly rounded on the outside. But if you look on the inside, they are completely flat. So you want to take that into consideration when you're trying to differentiate between your different tools. Then you need a pair of cutters. That does exactly what it says. It snips your wire, cuts your wire for you. And that is it for the tools. You will need a ruler to measure your 20 gauge wire, which is what we're going to use today. And I'm again using some African Krobo beads and paper beads. So let's go ahead and get down here to this other camera and get started. Okay, so these are the beads that I'm going to be using today. What we're going to start with is 12 inches of 20 gauge wire, because we're going to make a centerpiece. So I need 12 inches of wire, and I'm going to put 3 of these beads together. I'm going to use this lovely striped bead. And do I want to put no, I'm going to do the black and white next to that. Yeah, good. Yeah, so that's going to be my centerpiece. So the first thing I want to do is find the center of my wire. And I need, see, my beads are about 1.5 inches. So I need a good 10 inches beyond what I have in the beads, beyond what my beads will take up. So what you can do is put your beads on, slide them on the wire, and I need to find the center of my wire. This is 12 inches. So the center of this yellow bead is going to sit right on the 6. Let's just scoot that down until I get there. There we go. So then I can take my beads off, because I don't want to be fighting with them while I'm trying to make my loops. So the first thing I'm going to do is bend my wire back right there where my first bead is supposed to rest. Now I'm going to make a loop on the end, And in order to do that, I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm just going to slide the pliers under one of the teeth is going to, one of the arms is going to go under the bent part. So I have one part that's bent back, a short piece of wire that's bent back and horizontal to the side, and the rest of my wire is hanging down vertical. So I'm going to slide my wire down my pliers about a third of the way. And then take that short tail of wire, because I don't need too big a loop. Take that short tail of wire and bring it over the top of my pliers and down the side, like so. So now both of my wires are going in the same direction. Then I'm going to, without shifting my wire, I'm going to open up my pliers, turn them, and clamp back down so that now I have a kind of a T formation. If I turn my pliers up and let my wire hang vertical, I have a T right across the top of my pliers, and down vertically will be my wire. So I'm going to turn it back to the side so you can see what I'm doing. Right now I have a partial loop there. I'm going to bring the rest of that short tail of wire under my pliers, and now it's horizontal and my other wire is vertical. And now I have a full loop with my wire. Take that off of there so you can see. There's my loop. Then I'm going to grab my square pliers. Now, I want to show you something. My loop is fine. It's just fine. However, the stem, the straight stem that's hanging down here, the long piece of wire, should be right in the center of my loop. So that if I were to just kind of mark my way up the loop to the top of my loop, this should be right in the center. And it's a little off to the side. In order to fix that, I can just put my round nose pliers back in there and roll my wire until that long stem, I call that the stem, is right in the center of my wire, and I have a little bit of a lollipop with the short tail sticking out on the side. Okay. Now I want to grab my round nose pliers, my square pliers, excuse me, and I'm going to make a loop. So I'm going to wrap that around once and twice. And that is plenty. Now I'm going to grab, notice how I'm not straightening this wire out. If that drives you nuts, go ahead and straighten it out, but we're going to be wrapping it anyway, so I don't see the point. All right, so I'm going to put my beads on. I'm going to start with the white, black and white paper bead. Isn't that pretty? It's so neat. And the yellow striped African bead, and finish it off with my other black and white paper bead. Nice, I like it. I think I'm going to give it one more wrap here around the top of my bead. So what I'm going to do is lay those beads up against the top of my loop where the wrap is, because what I like to do is make a little cap on top of this bead to cover up that big hole that's in the paper bead. So now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this other wire. So I'm going to bend it back, make a loop. Oops, we have my round nose pliers for the loop. See how big that hole is there? I want to cover that up. So I'm going to grab my round nose pliers again, slide my wire down about a third of the way down my pliers. Bring that wire over the top of my pliers, rotate back on my pliers and bring it all the way under my pliers until I have a loop. I'm going to check and make sure that both of them look the same size. They do. Very good. And now I'm going to wrap that wire around under my loop and the pliers and on top of my bead. So that's my 2 wraps, just like I did on the other side. So now what I want to do is make a little cap to cover up that hole that's in the bead. So I'm going to adjust that so that my wraps are right on top of that bead. And then I'm going to give it one more wrap. I think that's enough to make that little cap that will cover the hole in my bead. Here we go. See that little cap on top? Nice. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Let's wrap that around. So I have a little cap here. There we go. Nice. Okay, so now I'm going to take this wire. I'm going to hold on to the loop with my pliers. And I'm going to bring this wire down the side of my bead. Just guide it down the side, just like so. Then I'm going to hold on to the bead and my wire, and I'm going to wrap that around the back of my bead. Just take it all the way around. And then one more half time until my wire is over on the opposite side from the wire that's going down the side. So there's the wire down the side. There's the wire that I just wrapped. And this is what I have. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my other wire. So I'm going to turn that over. Make sure that's nice and straight. Hold on to my loop. And I'm going to bring this wire down the opposite side. So I have a wire down this side. I'm going to bring this down the other side. Just bring that down. Hold on to my wire with my fingers because I don't want it to shift. And I'm going to wrap that wire around one time, one full time, and then over to the other side, opposite the wrap down the side of my bead. And that's what we have so far. And I really did not need that much wire. 10 inches would have been plenty, but that's okay. I'd rather have too much than too little because I can use this wire for something else. So this is what we have so far. We have a wrap down each side, one down one side of one side bead and one down the side of the other side bead. Now, all I need now, what I want to do now is make a little spiral. You know me and my spirals. So I'm going to make a little spiral that rests right here and right here. And I don't need a lot of wire for that. All I need is about an inch. So I'm going to measure an inch from the end of my bead. Get over here. And go about an inch because I don't want my spiral to be so big that it covers up my bead. Snip that off. Go to the other side and do the same thing. Snip that off. Okay. And now I'm going to make a spiral. I'm just going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to grab the tip of my wire with the very tip of my pliers. I don't want anything sticking out the back here because I need to make a tiny little loop and I want it to be nice and round. So I'm going to use the hand that's holding my pliers hand, and I'm going to start to make a loop. Now, I find it easier to bring my hand up nice and close and to hold everything. So I'm holding the wire still, so it's not rattling around. And I'm also holding on to the pliers, so I have a little more control. So now I'm going to start turning. See how it's going to fight you a little bit if you don't have control? I'm going to turn in the direction of the hand that's holding the wire. So I'm going to keep rotating until I have a little loop. So there's my little loop to start. Then I'm going to continue to wrap that little loop around. And I want the wire to wrap around itself. So side by side, I'm building up a little spiral. Now, once I get to where both I have a wrap and a half, I'm going to switch over to my flat pliers and grab the center of my loop. Just grab it on the side, and I'm going to continue to rotate to make that spiral. You see that happening? Yeah. Make it a little clearer. Keep rotating until I have a little loop or a little spiral that can rest right in the center of my bead. There we go. And there's my little spiral. We can go over just a little tiny bit more. There it is. Bring this down a little bit closer. Nice. Let's go to the other side and make the second spiral. I like to kind of move it away from the bead a little bit. I find that it makes it a little bit easier for me once I start getting to this spot. It makes it easier for me to be able to keep wrapping without bumping into the bead. And again, I'm choking up on those, on the wire and the bead. Rotate. And I'm just making little small turns until I have a loop. And I'm going to continue to wrap another half turn. So there's the start of my spiral. Oops, I don't want my cutters. I'm going to grab my square pliers, hold on to the side of my loop, and start spiraling. Just one loop around another until the wire is side by side wrapped around itself. Just keep wrapping until I get to the bead and in the spot that I want my spiral to sit. A little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to push that down in place. Here we go. There's my little centerpiece. And push it down just a little bit more. It matches it better with the other one. There we go. Nice. Isn't that cute? I like it. So there's my little centerpiece. Yay. So now what I'm going to do is do a single bead that's going to go on the side. I've already done one. It's going to go right there, and I'm going to echo what I did with my spirals, except that I'm going to put them on top. I saw Jen Hawks do something like this, but she used 2 wires to get the same effect that I'm going to do with one. You know me, I always have to try to make it different. So I'm going to make an embellished wrap on this bead, and for that I need 6 inches of 20 gauge wire, 20 gauge all the way through. Let's get 6 inches of wire. Slide my bead down to the center, and you can measure it if you want. There we go. Right there in the center. And then I'm going to go about just a very small distance away from the bead. All I need is the tip of my pliers on my wire. Then I'm going to take the short tail. I'm going to bend that out to the side, just like that. Okay. So I have one slightly shorter tail that's going to be horizontal, and the other one that's vertical. I'm going to grab my pliers, my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop. So again, I'm going to slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, bring that short tail over the top of my pliers and down the side so that it's meeting the other wire. Let's get over here. And then I'm going to open my pliers up, reposition them until I have that T across the top, straight down. Then I'm going to open my pliers up, rotate back, bring that short tail under the pliers. So I have another short tail horizontal, long tail vertical, and I have a nice little loop. So I'm going to give myself a wrap, because what I want to do, that little space that I left that's going to be between the bead and the loop, I want to fill that in. So I'm going to give myself 2 wraps to start. And I'm wrapping down the long stem of wire. So I've got my 2 wraps. I'm going to put my bead back on. Actually, I'm going to give myself 3 wraps, just because I know that's how many I need. I need about 3 to 3.5. So I'm going to give myself 2.5 wraps. Then I'm going to slide my bead on. And I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to put them in there again so that I can give myself another little space to wrap, just like I did on this side. So I'm going to bend my wire. Bend my wire. I'm going to scoot over a little bit because I want to have a little more space up here. So I'm going to do another wrap down here. So I'm going to scoot my pliers about 1/16 of an inch away from my bead, right here at the top, just near the tip, about 1/8 of the way from the tip, about 1/16 of an inch away from my bead, and I'm going to make a bend. So that's what I have. I have this space here. Grab and that space is about 1/4 of an inch, just for those of you who really want to know how much space is there. So I'm going to slide my wire down again, about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Bring that wire over the top of my pliers and down the side, right down there beside the bead. Open my pliers up, reposition them until I have that T. This time I have the pliers on top and the bead down going vertical. Bring that tail of wire under my pliers and out to the side. And there's my little loop. And I'm going to grab my square pliers again. I want to check, make sure they look like they're about the same size, and they do. Very good. Grab my square pliers, hold on to the face of my loop. I call the flat part the face of my loop, and start wrapping. You know what? Nope, that's wrong because I want this to come to do on top. Oh, I need to wrap the other direction. Oh, I'm glad I caught that. So here's what you want to do. Let me straighten that out. Get that little kink out. Because I want both of my wires to be on top here. I want one to be going across the top this way and the other to be going across the top the other way. So let me straighten that out. And get that corrected. That would have made me very unhappy. So now I need to correct my loop. So I'm going over the other direction. Okay, yes, that's right. So now I need to fix my little loop because it's a little mangled. Doesn't look so pretty anymore, even though we're going to cover it up. Here we go. Now I need to wrap. Okay, so I'm grabbing the face of my loop with my pliers. I'm going to wrap around once and twice. And if the wires aren't as close together as you want them, where am I? If the wires aren't as close together as you want them, squeeze them together with your pliers. Bring that up a little closer to the camera. And let's wrap around again. And that's my 2.5 times around. And there's still space here. See that? Still space. Knew I was going to have at least 3 wraps, but I didn't want to do it until I was sure. So I'm going to give myself another half wrap over to the other side with the other wire. And I'm going to switch over to the opposite side, give myself a half wrap. Okay. And I still have space. So I'm going to give myself another half of wrap. Yes. Switch over to the other side and another half wrap, and that's going to fill it in perfectly. So there we are. We're all filled in. Not too much movement. I don't want it moving around too much. A little bit of movement is fine, but I don't want a big gap in between my beads and my wire. Okay, so there we are. And now I'm going to make a spiral, just like I did on our centerpiece. I don't want it to be too big. I just want it big enough to cover my little wraps here. So I'm going to measure. I don't need an inch for this. I only need about 3/4 of an inch to make my little spiral. Okay, so I'm going to snip off that little edge, and this is very, very short tail. Then I can grab that. So notice how I hold on to the tail. If you don't, it will go. It's like a a projectile. It'll go flying across the room and you will hopefully find it before you step on it with bare feet or something. Okay, so I'm holding on to that. Snip that off. Okay, measure again, make sure I only have 3/4 of an inch because that's really all I want. It's closer to 7/8. So I'm going to take a little bit more off the tip. And that's a tiny little tip. So I'm going to turn that down into my wire spool and snip that off. There we go. Yes. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, 3/4 of an inch. I want. Snip that off. Okay. Measure again. Still a little more than I want, about 7/8. Take off that 1/8. Yes. Okay, so now I just need to make my little spiral, just like I did before. Run a little bit. Grab the tip of my wire with the tip of my pliers and turn my wire in the direction of the hand that doesn't have pliers in it. There's my loop. Continue to spiral until I have 1.5 loops. Then grab my square pliers and continue to spiral. And make sure that your wires are wrapping around themselves and not on top of each other. There we go. And then once I have my spiral, I'm just going to push it right up against those little wraps. And there we have it. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Loop. Continue to wrap the wire around itself. Grab my square pliers. And continue the spiral. It's so small, I can't grasp it. There we go. Now see, normally I would be down here. I'm trying to hold it up to the camera so you can see, and it's awkward. Very awkward. And one more little turn should do it. Get over there in the center. There we go. Very nice. And then just fold that up over my little wraps and under my loop. And there it is. Isn't that cute? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And now we need to put them together. Remember I said we could use these little pieces? We're about to use those little pieces because I'm going to make some infinity links in order to put this together. Now, I find it easier when you're making these little links to just keep a long tail of wire, just a long stem of wire, instead of trying to measure them off and decide exactly how much you need, because inevitably you are going to end up cutting up little pieces after you've made your link. And those little pieces, those little fractions of an inch can add up, and you don't want to waste a lot of wire. At least I don't want to waste a lot of wire. So let's do our infinity link. It takes about an inch of wire if you really want to know. It takes about an inch of wire, maybe a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on how big you make your loops. That's why it's almost impossible to tell you exactly how much wire you need. Just go ahead and keep a long strand and work from that. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to use this little bit of wire that I had left over after I cut it off. And let's see if that's enough to make my link. The first thing I want to do is slide my wire down about a third of the way down my pliers, just like I did with my loops. I don't want the links to be too big or too long. I don't want anything sticking out the back of my pliers. I'm going to go ahead and hold on to my wire, and I'm going to start to turn. Nice small turns. And then when I can't go any further and when it's too awkward to keep turning, I'm going to hold on to my wire, don't shift it, open my pliers, reposition them, clamp back down, rotate again, open, reposition, clamp back down, and I'm going to keep doing that until I have a loop. So there's my loop. Then I'm going to slide my pliers under the loop, slide my wire down about a third of the way down my pliers again, and I'm going to make another loop. Now, it's hard to do it when it's this short, which is another reason why I say just go ahead and use a long strand of wire to do this, because this is very awkward to try to do this with this short tail of wire. Very awkward. I'm going to go ahead and use my pliers to loop that the rest of the way. Oops, big enough. All right, so there's my loop. Push that down. So there's my loop. And then I'm going to take my cutters and cut off the excess. So I'm going to go back here to the back. Here's where the wires crossed over and the tail ends. So I just want to snip off that end. So just go right inside the loop, snip off that tail, and when that went flying. And see, that didn't even work. Let's not do that way. Let's do it another way. I know people say, oh, I love it when you make a mistake and I can see what I'm doing wrong because I snipped that right off. We don't want that. So I'm going to get a long piece of wire. Got about 6 inches of wire here. And I'm just going to start making those infinity links. See, this is what I cut off. Went flying and hit me in the stomach. Thank goodness for my shirt. Okay, so I'm going to slide my wire down about a third of the way down my pliers, just like with my loops. Just tuck it right in between my pliers, nothing sticking out here. I'm going to rotate the hand that has my pliers, open, rotate back, clamp back down, and I'm going to keep doing that until I have a loop, until the end of my wire backs up against the tail of wire. Then when I finish that, I'm going to take that out, slide my pliers back under the loop, slide the wire down about a third of the way down my pliers, and I'm going to rotate in the opposite direction. So here's my loop. I'm going to rotate back in the opposite direction and make another loop. And there we have my little figure 8. And I'm going to go in with my pliers and clip. Now, be careful that you don't cut too much off. I like to go back here to the back where I have a strand here as a guide, and I slide my wire right up against that tail that's back here in the back. Slide my pliers right there and snip off that tail. And there's my little infinity. Then I just use my pliers to make sure everything's nice and tidy, because you want the end of your wire to be backed up against that long stem there. Nice and tight. Okay, let's do that again. So I'm going to grab my pliers, slide my wire about a third of the way down my pliers, make sure that tip is not sticking out. Rotate the hand that's holding my pliers, small turns until I have a loop. Take my pliers out, slide them under the loop, slide my wire down about a third of the way down my pliers, rotate back in the opposite direction until my wires cross over and I have a second loop. Grab my pliers, go back here to the back, flatten that out, go back here to the back, put my pliers right up against the long piece of wire that's there, and clip. And there we go. Go ahead and make sure it's nicely closed on both sides. And there we have it. Now I'm going to show you how to put these pieces together. Already got this one ready to roll. So I'm going to go ahead and open up one side of my infinity link. And the way you open it is to take this one and mangle it. This is the one that I messed up. So don't worry, don't say, why is she messing up that link? I'm not. What you want to do this is what you do not want to do when you open one of these links. You don't want to pull it apart like that. Because see what I did? I just ruined my circle. I will never be able to get that circle back to its perfect form again. Well, I did, but it's harder. It's harder to do, especially when you have it linked to something. What you want to do is open it like this. You want to put your pliers on the face of your loop and just twist your wrist up. Just twist. Like that. And then when you close it, you just push it back down. You just twist it back down. Just like that. And it will close up nice and neat and easy. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up one of my loops. Just grab that face, and you can use either your round nose or your square nose. I find it easier with the square because the square pliers on the round wire, I can manage it better. The round wire with the round pliers, the pliers tend to slide off. Okay, so I'm going to open up that loop. I'm going to slide on my centerpiece, and I'm going to close it back up. And I like to double my links. One of the reasons is I think it looks pretty. I just think it looks prettier. I mean, that's just my opinion. So I like to double, but first I'm going to go ahead and attach the other side. So I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to twist it open and I'm going to put my bead on. Now, this is a little bit directional because you have a top and a bottom. This is the top. This is the top. So you want to make sure that it goes like this. In order to do that, when you want to put it on your link, put the two tops together. So this is the top and this is the top. Put them together or put the two backs together. Either way, you want them on the same, you want them meeting each other. And then you're going to, so this is the top of my bead and the top of my centerpiece. I'm going to slide that on and then open it out. And this is the way it's going to be. Oops. Come on, work with me here. There we go. So that they're both of the tops are going to be facing the same direction. Blur. Okay. Close that loop up. Nice and snug. And there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and put on a second link. So I always think it's easier if I have both of the links going in the same direction. So here's the tip of this link. So I'm going to make sure that when I put this on, this tip is also on this side. So I'm going to slide my open link inside, or my closed link inside the open link, and close it. Let's close that up. Make sure it's nice and snug against the back of the wire. And now I'm going to hook the other side. Open that up. Slide that wire, that closed loop inside the open loop. These are so small. The turning distance is very small. Probably easier to do with my pliers, and plus I think it makes it easier for you to see what I'm doing. So slide that closed loop inside the open loop, much easier, and close it up. Make sure everything is nice and tight. And there we have it. This could be a little closer. There we go. A little twisty. I don't know why. Oh, you know what? I think I've got it upside down. See how this side is on this side and this side is on this side? Let's take it off. That's not what I want. So I'm going to open up my loops again and turn it the other way. Take those off. flip it over, and put it back on. Now they're right. There we go. Yes. And close up my links. Oh, I'm off camera. Sorry about that. Close that up. There we go. Nice. Let's do the other one. Already got them hooked on. I'm going to take them off so I can show you again how to do it. Oops. Open them up. Take that off of there. Okay. So I'm going to take my loops, slide the closed loop inside the open loop. Both of them are open. And then I'm going to close them up. All right, I'm coming. Close them up one at a time. 1 and 2. And if you're adept enough to close them up at the same time, good for you. There we go, nice and tight. Let's go over to the other side and attach the other bead. Open those up. Okay, I want it to go this way. Okay, it goes this way, yes. Yes, it's going to go that way. And make sure here. Put them on. I'm going to slide the closed link inside the open link. Check to make sure they're on the right side. I think it goes this way. Boom. Because it's going to flip around. Slide those both in. The open loops. Yes, that's the way they go. Both of my spirals are on the same side. Grab my pliers and close up those loops. I like to do it one at a time so I can see exactly what I'm doing. And again, if you're adept at doing them both at the same time, great, but you want to make sure that you don't tangle up your infinity links with each other. They should be separate. Check and make sure everything's closed. See a little teeny tiny gap there. If I can get my fingernail in there, then it's a little too open for me. There we go. And there's the beginning of my bracelet. So now I need to put 2 more of these on, but I'm going to do that off camera because I think that's going to take more time than we need to take. And I think you've got the gist. So let's get started. Ooh, isn't that pretty? So let me go ahead and put those other 2 links on and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is my bracelet. All I need now is a clasp. Isn't that cute? I love it. Oh, I do. Okay, so all I need is a clasp. Now, you can use infinity links to attach your clasp, but if I do that, it's going to be too big for my wrist. So I don't need an additional set of infinity links. I just need to make a hook and a loop to fasten this because I have about maybe 3/4 of an inch of space between my 2 beads. So I don't want to make it too long. But if you need to add another set of infinity links to connect your clasp, to your bracelet. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how. Oh, I had this left over. This is perfect. To make a hook and a loop. And I'm going to use this piece to make my hook. This is about, I only need about 4 inches. This is about 4 3/4 of an inch. So that's good. I love it when I can use spare pieces. So let's get up here where we can see. So what I need to do is measure about 1.25 inches from the end. I'm using 1.25 inches because I need a very small clasp. Otherwise, my bracelet's going to be too big. Measure your wrist, determine how much space you have in between, and act accordingly. 1.25 inches will give me a hook that's about 1/2 inch long. Then I need my loop, which is going to be another 1/2 inch or so. If you need yours a little bit bigger, add another 1/4 inch or add another whatever amount you need, but 1/4 inch on each your hook and your clasp should give you another 1/2 inch. All right, so anyway, that's my lesson. So I'm going to give myself 1.25 inches from the tip, and I'm going to fold that short tail of wire down until the short tail and the long tail are running parallel to each other. I'm going to squeeze it with my fingers as much as I can. And then when I can't get it any closer with my fingers, I'll use my pliers to squeeze it the rest of the way until my wires are side by side as close together as I can get. Then I'm going to go down here to the non-bent end and bend this short tail of wire up about 1/2 inch from the end. I'm just going to bend it straight up, holding on to it with my flat pliers. I'm going to bend it straight up and along the pliers, just like that. So this is what I have. Then I'm going to keep a hold of those 2 ends of wire, the 2 strands, and right down here where I bent my wire, I'm going to wrap that short tail around the long tail. Bend around 1 time, and 1.5 times is plenty. 2 if you want to. And if you don't want to waste your wire, that's just fine. Okay, then I'm going to snip that little tail off. And again, I have a teeny tiny piece of wire, so I'm going to turn that down in my spool, flip it, and now it's captured down in there. Take my square pliers, squeeze that little end down so it won't scratch on anything. Just squeeze it down as tight as I can get to my wire. There we go. And then I'm going to bend my wire back. See, there's a little tiny space between my wraps. In order to fix that, I'm just going to take my pliers and squeeze those wires together till they're nice and close and neat. Okay, so now I'm going to bend my wire to the side. Here are the 2 sides of my wire. I'm going to bend my wire to the side. Grab my round nose pliers. Slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. And I'm going to bring my wire over the pliers and down the side. Then without moving my wire, I'm going to rotate my pliers again and bring that tail of wire out to the side, just like that. This is what I have so far. And then before I do anything further, I need to attach it to my bracelet. So I'm going to slide this tail of wire into one of my loops. and slide that loop inside the open loop that I just made. And I'm going to grab my pliers again. And I'm going to wrap around my wire. And now I'm wrapping on top of the wire that I just wrapped, just so I have a nice wrap there. And I like to have the end of wire underneath my hook. So this is going to be the back of my bracelet. So I'm going to bring that around until it's right there beside my hook. I'm going to clip that off as close as I can get. Then I'm going to push that little end down so that it's resting on the back side of where the back side of my bracelet will be. Push that down nice and snug. And now I'm going to make my hook. Push the little wires together a little closer. Okay, so this is the front of my bracelet. My hook's going to be going that way. So what I'm going to do is take the tip of my pliers, either your round ones or your square ones, and make a tiny little ledge here. And I mean a tiny little twist, not a big twist, just a small one. Nice little twist until I have that little ledge. Then I'm going to go down here right by the coils that I just made, and I'm going to make another little bend back, just a slight bend like that. Then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers that I already had. I'm going to slide my wire down towards the back of my pliers, about 3/4 of the way, just under that little ledge that I made. And I'm going to start turning away from the wire that's bent back. So I'm going to turn in the opposite direction, just make a small turn, then open, rotate back, clamp back down, do another turn, open, and just keep doing that until I have shepherd's hook. There we go. There's my little hook. Isn't that cute? I like those a lot. You've seen me make them a lot. So now I just need to go to the other side and make a loop for my hook to go through. So I need about 3 inches of wire for that. Not quite, but kind of. I'd rather have too much than too little. I'm going to snip that off. And I'm going to bend my wire back about 1 inch from the tip. Grab my round nose pliers, slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way from the back, and make a loop. Just like we've been doing. I'm not going to close that up because I need to hook it to my bracelet. But before I do that, I'm going to make my big loop that's going to be what my hook goes through. I could have made that first. As a matter of fact, I probably should have. Because now I'm going to have to attach this to the bracelet and do it while the bracelet's flip-flopping around. But that's okay. If you don't want to do it that way, you can do the big loop first and the little loop last. Want me to show you that? Yeah, let's do that. That makes more sense. So I'm going to get 3 inches of wire. Don't worry, I can use that you think I'm wasting. So I'm going to bend my wire about 1.5 inches from the end because I need a big loop. So I'm going to get myself about 1.5 inches. Slide my wire down about halfway down my pliers because I need a big enough loop for my hook to go through. I'm going to bring that short tail of wire over the top of my pliers and down the side until both my wires are parallel. I'm going to open up my pliers, rotate back, clamp back down, and bring my wire under my pliers until I have a loop. And I'm going to grab my square pliers, hold on to the face of my loop, and wrap that short tail around the long one. And I just need about 1.5 wraps or 2 if you want. But that is enough. And then I'm going to clip off my end. Again, I like my little end to rest in the middle of my loop. I find that's better than on the side because if it's on the side, it can catch on something, even if you push it down as much as you can. So let's snip that off. Tiny little tail, turn it down in here. Boom. See, it's still cocked back out. You have to be so careful. Squish down that little tip. Let's go to the other side and make, see, this is going to go boom like that. Let's make our other little loop. I'm going to bend my wire back again. Grab my round nose pliers, slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Bring my wire over the top of my pliers and down the side. Open my pliers up, rotate back, and bring the wire under until I have my little loop. My little loop doesn't look so loopy and pretty. Let's just fix that. Much better, much, much better. And before I go any further, I need to attach it to my bracelet. So let's go ahead and slide that closed loop inside up down the tail of my loop here, my clasp. Slide that inside. There we go. And let's wrap it. Now you see why I didn't want to do this first and then have to do that second, because this would have been bouncing all over the place. Okay, let's wrap it. And I like to wrap it over the other wrap just to give it a nice organic look. If you want to just wrap it enough so it fills in the space, that's entirely up to you. Okay, and again, I'm going to clip it so that the end is right in the center of my loop, so I don't have anything sticking out on the side. Put that nice and close. Get in there and stay. And push down that little tip. Nice and snug. I like to push it down in between the other wires, and then I can't feel it at all. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our bracelet. Oops. No, let's just smidge. Just a smidge. Hmm. Open a little bit. There we go. There it is. I want to see the design. Let's see the design. Let's turn it this way. You can see it. Then we can see the design. There we go. Here we go, ladies and gents. There's our bracelet. Oh, let me put it on. That's even better. Let's do that. There it is. There's my bracelet. Yay! Isn't that great? Oh, isn't that awesome? I don't wear yellow often, but this is beautiful. I love it. I kind of wish I could have embellished my clasp like I like to do, but it would have been too big if I had tried to do that. This is lovely. I could sit here and look at this all night and then we'd never get out of here. Okay, so anyway, that is my bracelet. That is our bracelet. I hope you like this and I hope you'll make one because these are just, gosh, I really like it a lot. And I love these embellished links. Again, I picked up on this from Jim Hawks. You can see her, you can find her on YouTube. And she makes embellished links with the little spirals on them, but she uses two pieces of wire. She wraps the bead, she makes her wrap, then she has a second piece of wire to make the other wrap and the decoration. So I sat down and I thought, can we do that with one piece of wire? And the answer is yes, we can. So that's what we did. And I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed this. And I hope you will make one of these. I have to move this because I'm cutting my head off. I hope that I'm still using my hand cam and it's really not convenient. But there it is up there. But I hope that you will do something like this because I really enjoyed this and I had fun making it and kind of mapping it out as I go. And these beads are so beautiful, but you really don't have to use a particular type of bead to get this result. You can do whatever beads strike your fancy to make this piece. Okay, that's it. I love it when I get new pieces of jewelry. There are so many of them. And anyway, we're finished. That is our program for today. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you will make one of these pieces and show me what you made. If you would like to do that, or if you would like to make a comment, you can make it on the Facebook page. You can make it on the YouTube page. You can email me at jewelrygin20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com. You can look at the library Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DeKalb Library. That's facebook.com/DeKalb, DEKALB We would love to hear from you. I love getting feedback. I love it when you tell me, oh, you were off camera for like 5 minutes or something like that. I've never had that happen, thankfully, or at least nobody's told me that I had. But those are the things that I need to watch. Like right now, I'm dealing with this hand camera situation, which is not ideal, but it's what I've got. My other camera, my webcam decided to go on vacation and not come back. So I'm working with this as best I can, and I hope that it's good for you. I hope that it's working, and I hope that you're still able to see everything that I'm trying to do. And in a way that's beneficial for you. That's it. I hope that this isn't too much over an hour because I keep promising I'm not going to do that. And I think I did go over a bit. But I hope that you enjoyed this and I hope that you'll come back and see me again and let me know how you enjoy the program and everything we're trying to do for you. So until next time, have a great week, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.